Hi, if you were Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about businesses that's set up by migrants, be they illegal, be they legal, be they whatever. Now, remember, of the total migration intake to the West, a tiny proportion are qualified and experienced and credentialed to first world standard. So 97% of the migrants that come in are primarily illiterate peasants, and they've got no chance of finding in any form of merit. I mean, affirmative action programs might give them jobs, but they've got no chance of getting worthwhile employment from merit. All they can do is work as labourers and effectively slave labourers. Now, the way it works is this, and there's a number of things. So there's a migrant that'll set up a business, often in using like a local sort of mafia sort of connection group, and the other one is through scam labour hire organisations. But the difference is close to irrelevant. So say somebody from a third world country comes to Australia and they've got the local sort of mafia goon school where you can go and borrow money at brutal interest rates, by the way. Now, what these guys do is they say, okay, you can open up, and it's always food. It's always a cash business. They'll never be encouraged to open a business that isn't cash. So it's a cash business, food, take out food, or low, like a bakery or something like that. So they'll get the money to set up a business. They'll have to pay brutal interest rates, 25% per annum. And they also have to accept a number of conditions. They have to employ other people from their nationality who can be exploited. And the way it works is this. So somebody comes from, again, some third world country. They get some sort of a government handout or assistance, whether it be in Australia or elsewhere, it doesn't matter. And they'll get, the equivalent of food stamps, maybe rent assistance. Maybe they'll get cheap travel passes so they can, what you and I may pay $25 for a public transport, these guys will get for a couple of bucks. So they get all sorts of government handouts and help and so on. But then that means they can't work. As soon as they work, they'll lose these benefits, free healthcare and whatnot. So they go to they're part of this sort of wider, mafia group. It doesn't matter, whatever third world country it is, or Eastern European country for that matter. And they are then ordered to work at this this takeout food shop that another one of their fellow citizens, countrymen, has opened up. Now, what do they get in return? Well, they'll get a few bucks under the table. They'll also get free food while they're working there. They'll also have to work long hours, so they'll have to work 6 or 7 days a week. Maybe they're living in an apartment that is actually owned by these mafia goons, which then is used as a real estate scam at the same time as a labour scam. Maybe the shop is used as a front to bring in extra people from that country. So the shop will say, well, I can't find anyone that's got expertise in, I don't know, making souvlaki or something, whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't matter. And they need to speak a special dialect of Chinese, and only that will do. And so, and these people skite and boast about how easy it is to run rings around the Australian immigration system and scam supposed skilled workers, which are nothing more than illiterate peasants, to work in their takeout food shop or their bakery or something like that. But the material point is, apart from the Australian taxpayer being ripped off and the government making no effort to stop it, by the way, purposefully looking the other way, what's going on here is that the business that's set up is not even remotely viable. It's not a viable business. It's only made viable by the fact that all their labour is free or close to free. Now, these people aren't, the people that are working in the bakery or the takeout food shop. They're actually not free. They're getting effectively all their income is paid for by the Australian taxpayer in relation to handouts and unemployment checks and this sort of thing. So they front up to the unemployment place and no speak of the English, and bingo, they've got handouts galore, ostensibly to help them find work and so on and integrate, but they don't use it for that. They hang around tightly in communities that only come from their country of origin. They're controlled by mafia goons. Go here, work there, do this, do that. So they've got no liberties. They're effectively controlled in the same ways they would be in the country that they came from. But this time they've got lights that switch on and running water and toilets that flush and all this sort of stuff. So, but nonetheless, that's the scam there. So all these businesses are existing, and again, whether it's takeout food shops or hairdressers or nail bars, and all these are existing on as a front for something else, either illegal immigration or money laundering or whatever it might be. So. And also, like, especially the Indians and so on and Chinese are good at this. They'll have an offshore management company that's managing the loan, if you will. So if the local business does surprise everyone and make a genuine profit, then they can instantly up the management fee so that there's no local profit and thus no tax. So the employees aren't taxed, the business isn't taxed. In fact, no tax is being paid. In the meantime, they've got a business that, again, can't exist in any sort of commercial sense. If they had to pay the proper commercial rate for employees as mandated by industrial law, employment law, then the business wouldn't last 5 minutes. So it's only through multiple interacting scams they can get this. The same goes for labour hire firms that bring in labourers to do dig ditches and dig holes in the road or something like that. It's just straight out labouring, and they've got an interpreter overseer that brings them out in a bus. 10 of them arrive, 20 or whatever will arrive in a bus, and then they'll be ordered. Get out, you do this, you do that, and so on. And the labour hire firm gets paid. Also the same with cleaners. There's I was at a friend's house. A guy I know. I mean, I don't know him that well really, but he's got a mansion-size house and water views and the $500,000 worth of cars parked in the driveway, that sort of thing. And he has cleaners come around on a regular basis, and this like mini bus, like 10, 12-seater bus, whatever, comes up, and there's all these Chinese people in there. They're all peasants. You can tell from the way they walk and the way they look. They've got their overseer interpreter. And they all just troop out, and then she barks out orders, you do this and you mop that and you sweep this, and barks out orders. And that's it. So they all file out of the bus, and there's mass confusion as they all mill around, do the thing, and then back in the bus and off they go, and this sort of thing. And these are all illiterate peasants. And the dialect, I speak Chinese, Mandarin, so the dialect they speak is not Beijing Mandarin, not by far. So they're just illiterate rural peasants that are brought in to do this. But again, they skite about how all these people are brought in under the skilled migration program. Skilled migration, they're illiterate in their own fucking language, so they're just displaced farmers out in the sticks. So these are the levels of exploitation. So coming now to the issue in the United States of the mass repatriation, the mass eviction of illegals, and so on. Certainly any migrant that I'm aware of in Australia, every single fucking time they open up a business, it's all takeout, a cash business, takeout food. Every time they will always employ their locals, and somehow it's known. I'm thinking, somebody comes from Bulgaria. I don't know how many Bulgarians there are in Australia, but can't be that many. And so they open up like a takeout food shop selling, I'm not sure, like burgers, something like that. But, and everyone in the shop's Bulgarian. I mean, and hardly any of them speak a lick of English. All they do is talk Bulgarian to each other. I mean, where do you find these people? But all of them are on government benefits and handouts, and they're all working. I would argue they're all working illegally. They're all drawing government benefits at the same time working in the shop. Now they're not drawing double salaries, really. That's not what's going on here. So the fraud is in the business structure itself rather than on the individual. Now they get a few bucks under the table, but nothing serious. But it's really they just get free. They're transported for free. They live in properties that are owned by the mafia goons that set up the business, and they get free food. That's really all it is. And they're given food to take home for a day that they don't work. So that's really it. So they would live a pretty decent standard of living, really. Now, out of the money they get from the government, unemployment benefits, there's a percentage of that they have to hand over to the mafia goons for accommodation and so on. But that's sort of generally how the scam works. Now, in the US recently, I think in the last day or two, a bakery was raided somewhere in the US where, again, a cash takeout sort of food business, and there was a South American guy who was fronting it, and he had somewhere between, I think, eight and 10 employees there that were all illegals. And again, they weren't being paid the proper rate or given the proper conditions. So it's tantamount, I would argue, to modern day slavery. I couldn't get a closer analogy. It's slavery. And there are thousands upon thousands of businesses just in Australia that are only existing because of this slavery. So as soon as the mass migration dries up, and more importantly, these illegal workers are evicted, then there are tens of thousands of businesses that are going to have to close because they can only exist as scams. They can't exist as genuine businesses in a first world competitive commercial capitalist environment. They just can't exist. So they're going to go. So there's going to be a lot of realignments around this, and I think they're all good. Money should be in productive areas. What is effectively a mass tax avoidance scheme using slave labor and so on, and dodgy businesses that couldn't exist in any commercial sense. That needs to end. It'll be a good thing when that happens, and I can't wait for it to be cleaned up. You've been with Taskers today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.